pyramids. Happened to go into one right as all the planets in the solar system align.
Oh, I see. I thought you were talking about Stargate at first when you were talking
it's
about
kind of Stargate-ish, but they end up in an alternate reality, parallel universe on a different Earth, where things work differently.
YouTube is live. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
It's just Roger and I today, and that's because Patrick is sick, and we hope he feels better very, very soon.
He's sick. He's French.
Those are two different things. Roger is not implying that one is related to the other.
Am I?
Or is he?
Aren't I?
We are not. Well, I was making a bunch of really bad jokes.
I'm going to be the talking webpage today.
Patrick folding. Yeah, that's fine.
Talking. Look at me. I'm Equifax. I'm talking.
I don't think that's who you want to be.
Yeah, that makes me kind of depressed. Where do you go from there? I've always wondered. Like, what do you do? Like, oh, I'm the CEO. I had to step down and hire me to run your...
You become a board. I mean, he was the chairman and CEO, so you become a board member at other companies that have nothing to do with credit monitoring.
But like,
and want to take advantage of your long experience. He also has got a golden parachute. Like, he's retiring. He's not even quitting. So he's going to be fine. I would worry about him.
I'm not worried about him, but I've always wondered that. Like, you know, like when you're doing that, do you have to do that at like when in your August years where you're like, I got a golden parachute, I got a nest egg. If I totally flub this, because
he'll consult. He'll consult. He'll be on boards. He'll do some charitable
don't
work.
do what I did. Refund your security.
Yeah, it's not even a joke. He'll probably do that. He'll probably give seminars to corporations on how to avoid making the same mistakes he did.
So what I did that was wrong was I ordered the tamales, which took 2 minutes longer. Those 2 minutes, 2 minutes,
caused one developer to have low glucose. Yeah. Well, shall we?
Shall.
All right. Here we go.
Daily Tech News Show is powered by its audience, not outside organizations. To find out how you can help power the show, visit dailytechnewsshow.com/support.
This is the Daily Tech News for Tuesday, September 26th. I think it's Wednesday. Is it Tuesday? It's Tuesday. It's Tuesday, September 26th, though, Roger. September 26th, 2017. I'm Tom Merritt. Roger Chang, my producer, alongside, because Patrick Beja is sick today. So everybody go on to Twitter, @NotPatrick. I hope you feel better, and give him some good vibes so he wakes up tomorrow and he's just all better again.
Yeah. And you should talk to your producer about that date.
Yeah, right?
Let that stuff slip
What's that about?
I don't know. I would have a word with him.
Yeah, seriously. I'll let you handle that for me. Thank you, Roger. I appreciate that. This is one of those funny things where I've talked about it a couple of times in the pre-show, but starting next week, there will always be a Sarah Lane around most of the time to fill in if somebody gets sick or falls out or something like that. But for now, this is the last of the Sarah, Roger. I'm going to enjoy it.
Enjoy it. Savor it.
Yeah.
Because from then on, things just get better.
And seriously, Patrick went on Twitter is like, I feel bad, I feel guilty for not being. Don't feel guilty at all. Just get better. Let's start with a few tech things you should know. Equifax announced Tuesday that Chairman and CEO Richard Smith will retire. Head of Equifax's Asia Pacific Division, Paulino de Rego Barros, will take over as interim CEO, and Mark Fielder will serve as non-executive chairman. Smith will stay on as an unpaid advisor during the transition because he knows where all the bodies are buried, probably.
I mean, what do you do? What do you do after something like this? Do
you consult? You go on other boards? You do some charity work? That's my best guess.
Probably. I mean, it's a huge pile for the next guy to clean up.
Amazon's voice assistant is now available in the Music app on iOS and Android for users in Austria, Germany, the UK, and US. Users tap the button in the app, and then you can talk to it and ask it to do musical things like you would to an Amazon Echo, like play me some jazz, stuff like that.
It'd be great if you could have it understand your kids' words, and so it can kind of do sort of what they want without you having to tell.
When you say understand your kid's words, you mean when your kid is not speaking full English yet, I'm guessing.
Yes, when it's broken words.
It can understand kids' words.
My kid basically does a lot.
Yeah, you want it to be able to understand that. Yeah. I see. Microsoft will offer a public preview of Office 2019, which it calls its Perpetual Edition. This is the version you download and you don't have to subscribe to. You just download it, you pay for it, you download it, you use it. That's coming by mid-next year, the preview anyway, for users who don't subscribe to Office 365. I mean, if you do get Office 365, I suppose you could pay for this one too, but it wouldn't make a lot of sense. Microsoft will also ship new releases of SharePoint Server, Exchange Server, and Skype for Business Server in the second half of calendar 2018. I mean, there's still people out there that say, I just need spell check. I don't need to have constantly updating features. Yeah. So just let me buy Office once and use it till I'm done.
That's me. I only need it once. Or maybe fix a couple of misspellings in the spell check. But other than that, yeah.
Yeah, and that can be updated. They do give updates to the perpetual license. You can only use it on one computer, that's all. So if you're like, ooh, I like being able to spread it out to 5 computers, that would be a different reason. Synack chief security researcher Patrick Wartell discovered a password exfiltration hack in macOS High Sierra. Yeah, the one that just came out yesterday. It lets an attacker copy all the passwords from Apple's keychain in plain text. This is a very bad vulnerability, but it's not easily run into. A user would have to bypass macOS's gatekeeper feature. That's the one that won't let you install anything unsigned and really makes it best if you just get everything from the Apple App Store. You would have to disable that, then download an unsigned app that happened to take advantage of the bug. So you kind of have to be tricked into doing that and then run the app. Apple is aware of the vulnerability, but has not yet released a patch.
Yeah, it's, like you said, it's not serious if you stayed within the walled garden. But if you're someone like me who ooh, this looks cool, I'm going to try it. I'm going to disable the Guardian and run it. It might be a different story.
Yeah, and I believe this is not particular to High Sierra. It's just that it exists in High Sierra and previous versions of macOS. And honestly, this just means if you did turn off Gatekeeper, like probably most of us in the audience have, be careful. Even trusted sources, as recently evidenced by CCleaner, can sometimes get hacked. So pay attention to those hashes. Make sure that you're really careful about what you download. Here are some more top stories. Mozilla updated its beta and developer versions of Firefox to Firefox 57, aka Firefox Quantum. Though do not be confused, you can, in fact, know both the location and the velocity of the Firefox 57 browser. It incorporates Mozilla's new Project Quantum browser engine. Firefox Quantum is twice as fast as browsing than Firefox was last year. Beats Chrome in some tests. It's supposed to be a quantum leap in performance. I think that's where we're going with the Quantum. Firefox Quantum can take advantage of multiple CPU cores. That's one of its performance benefits.
It's huge.
Yeah. So the CSS engine is written in Rust and can run on multiple cores. It also prioritizes the selected tab for quicker loading, and Firefox 57 includes the new Photon look, so it's got a nicer look too. Firefox 57, aka Quantum, is scheduled for release to everyone on November 17th. So this is just the developer or beta versions if you're on those.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say the guys who developed this were big fans of Star Trek.
Star Trek?
Yeah. Quantum, like quantum torpedoes.
I really, really thought you were going to finish that sentence with big fans of Quantum Leap.
No.
But that's literally what this is a quantum leap in performance. But that aside, this is
Listen,
huge.
both had Scott Bakula.
That's well, Enterprise did. This is a huge increase in performance, being able to take multiple cores. What I don't know is if this will be enough to convince people to get off the bloated Chrome, because the perception is still that Firefox is bloated.
It just, for the longest time, it had this memory issue where it hogged more RAM for some reason than it was actually using at the time. And so it's one of those things. I mean, car companies know this. A badly perceived brand or item is really hard to kind of regain public trust. It's takes so long to build a reputation. Takes a couple of stupid mistakes to ruin it. And hopefully with this, it really gets it up there, because as much as I like Chrome, sometimes I don't like Chrome.
Plex announced the launch of a dedicated news hub within the app. Users can browse news from around the world, as well as create a personalized newscast that adapts based on your behavior. So if you skip stuff, or if you always watch a particular kind of story, it will pay attention to that. It'll also include relevant news stories beyond your user preferences, things that it just considers to be globally relevant in an effort to keep you from being inside a news bubble. It's called My Newscast. It draws clips from multiple sources around the world, and you can choose to follow or mute those sources or topics. So if there's one source you're like, I never want to hear from them, you can mute that. Or if you're just like, I don't need to know celebrity gossip, you can mute that, stuff like that. You can also get your local news through agreements with U.S. affiliates in around 80% of the U.S. Plex has struck deals with local news, so you get a local version of news as well. And it's free and ad supported. So you're going to have to watch ads, but you don't have to pay for it. You don't even have to be a Plex Pass subscriber. I think Plex Pass subscribers get this first, but over the next 48 hours, it should roll out to everybody.
So, I mean, I think it's cool, but I think it's kind of contradictory. They don't want to shove users into a news bubble, but then users get to say like, well, I don't want this source. I don't want these types of stories. Doesn't that kind of whittle that back down?
You took their you took their statement and reversed it to make them guilty of what they were trying to say they're trying to fight against. Like, what they're saying is, look, we want you to be able to customize this so that you get relevant news, because not everybody has the same tastes or the same interests. But we understand that could lead to a news bubble. So we're going to have certain top stories that will just always be available for everybody. So it's not that they're not acknowledging that having personal tastes would possibly create a news bubble. It's that they're trying to mitigate that while not removing the ability for you to personalize.
You make a good point, Merritt.
Sometimes.
It's just it's not even a criticism, but it's more of just an observation of human behavior.
Well, because the opposite is not to have personalization, right? Is that the only solution? No, I actually think this is a pretty clever way of doing it, saying, hey, you know what the front page of the newspaper did? Exposed you to news that you didn't necessarily pick because it was right there on the front page and you couldn't get past it. And then you decided, oh, I'll read the sports section or the lifestyle section based on your tastes. And this is kind of saying we're going to have a front page of stories that everybody gets. And then, you can move on and the other stories will be based on your tastes. The question I had was, okay, but how do you decide what those top stories are? I mean, I think if you're favorable to this idea, you're like, oh, well, there's always if there's an earthquake or a disaster or a big diplomatic incident, that's great. But it's always on the fringes where it's like, well, wait a minute, why wasn't this a top story? What are you trying to cover up?
Interesting, Tom. Very interesting. It's a very, I don't want to make light of it. It's actually a very complicated and very nuanced subject that not everyone might key in on.
And I want to give Plex, I mean, this is based on Plex acquisition of a service that did this. I love that they're just rolling it in and saying, we're going to monetize it with ads. People are used to watching ads on news, and we're not going to charge for it. We bought this company that does this, and we're just going to make it a base feature so that even if you're somebody who hasn't necessarily been interested in Plex up till now, you might be willing to try it just for this.
It possibly. I'm more familiar with Plex as for all the other stuff it does.
Well, sure, I'm talking about people in general might be like, oh, I would like a customizable news source like that. Maybe I'll try this Plex thing out and see what else it can do. Vimeo announced it's acquiring Livestream and launching a product called Vimeo Live. The new integration will let users capture, edit, stream, and archive live events in 1080p. Live streaming is not going to be cheap, though. It's offered in several tiers with varying prices, starting at $75 a month for 5 hours of streaming per month. I think it's $300 a month if you prepay for a year if you want unlimited streaming, and then there's like $800 a month for these business level things that you can negotiate individual costs. The deal for Vimeo acquiring Livestream is expected to close in early Q4. So this is not, hey, YouTube and Twitch, anybody can get on and Livestream. This is, we are providing a boutique service to professional broadcasters who want to stream live, or even smaller people who want a really quality effort.
Yeah, and it's kind of weird because I do remember the various iterations of people trying to live stream for a corporate or business entity. And I remember initially, because I did this for the IFC, it was a lot of hoops the first time. Like, so how do I do this? Do I need to set up a bunch of servers or rent them out so I can, basically carry enough capacity so a bunch of people could watch it? And then it moved on to like, how am I going to stream this particular event without having to pay, a month out of fees and stuff. I think Vimeo is kind of closing in on almost the perfect turnkey solution for businesses that aren't big, that want to be able to do one-off things with live streaming, or not, I shouldn't say one-off, but limited, without necessarily having to buy in to an entire kind of integrated structure.
Yeah, I like that slice that they're carving out for themselves, saying, if you want to start an on-demand service, we've got a product. They've got VHX, where you can use Vimeo as your backend for that. If you want to provide high-quality film in good streaming with easy accessibility and controls, Vimeo main. And now they're going to have Livestream, which I just saw somebody say, wait, Livestream was still around? It wasn't around in the sense of when it launched as a .com where anybody could stream to it. It has become a much more professional streaming place. So NPR's This American Life uses it. Comedy Central uses it. Draft House Films uses it. This is a business-oriented product, and looks like that's what Vimeo wants to do with it, is just roll it into Vimeo and say, here, now we have another offering for serious professionals that may sound expensive if you're comparing it to live streaming on Twitch for free, but is not crazy expensive if you're comparing it to what Roger was just talking about and setting up your own service.
Yeah, and I think, if they can really pull it off, I mean, that's a potentially very lucrative niche for them to be in.
Yeah. On September 23rd, Twitter user Skensnet noted that Showtime's website included a script that was using visitors' CPU to mine the Monero cryptocurrency. Does that sound familiar?
What?
Close followers of Daily Tech News Show and Daily Tech Headlines know that the Pirate Bay had previously tested using something called CoinHive to mine the Monero cryptocurrency as an alternative revenue stream. Bleeping Computer found the presence of the CoinHive miner on Showtime. It was removed on Monday. And we're waiting, depending on your headline writer, this is either being pitched as Showtime was secretly mining cryptocurrency without telling you, or it's Showtime hacked and script put up. We don't know if it was either one. We don't know if somebody hacked Showtime and slipped the script in here, or if Showtime decided, hey, let's throw this thing in Showtime.com and Showtime anytime. Maybe nobody will notice and we'll make a little money on the side.
Executive needed to pad out his annual wage, hopefully undetected.
I doubt. I'm going to agree with you part way there. I doubt it was an executive.
It's something internal. It's someone.
My guess is it was somebody internal who thought, "Hey, you know what? I could slip this in. Nobody will notice. It'll just mine in the background. It's brilliant. I'll be rich."
Yeah, they'll rue the day they passed me up for promotion.
The other possibility Tinvec just put in the chat room is that it's a gag for a new show, that it's a promo. If they were the Mr. Robot channel, I'd be 100% certain on that. I don't know. I mean, maybe Showtime's got a new show coming out that this will tie into. I kind of feel like it's just a mistake.
Maybe they just needed bridge funding, to get something else.
The fact that it came out so close to the Pirate Bay being caught doing this just makes me think somebody saw that script at the Pirate Bay and thought, well, that's clever. I have access to the Showtime CMS. Let me put this up on their website and see what happens.
Yeah, it's cool, but it can also be a little unsettling for people who are like, what does this mean? Did someone take over my computer to do stuff? Because that's what they hear. They don't hear the Bitcoin. They don't hear the mining. They hear someone took control of my computer to do something that I didn't know about.
Well, and CoinHive, by the way, has said we're kind of uncomfortable with the fact that twice now websites have been caught running our system without getting user approval. So they are going to build into their script a user notification so that if anybody does put this on websites in the future, it'll ask them like, hey, this site's going to be mining in the background. Are you cool with that? So that you know what's happening at least.
Only if I get a percentage.
According to IEEE Spectrum, Broadcom's new BCM 47755 according to IEEE Spectrum, Broadcom's new BCM 47755 global navigation satellite system receiver chip will be the first with dual frequency capability. It's not a snappily named chip, but it's pretty cool. That should mean GPS on any device with the new chip will be accurate within 30 centimeters instead of the normal 5 meters. So lane accuracy becomes a probability now because they can tell exactly where you are on the road, not, well, he's on the road, we just don't know exactly where. Broadcom says the chip has been included in the design of some phones set for release next year. They're not saying which ones. Dual frequency has been used in the industry. It's been used in oil, for instance, but battery constraints, among other things, have really kept it out of consumer devices. New chip also takes advantage of the greater L1 and the new L5 frequency availability. In other words, there are more satellites, so it can combine the L1 and L5 frequencies to determine location with better accuracy. Broadcom's chip can receive not only GPS, but GLONASS, Galileo, and Beidou geolocation systems.
I think that's huge. I mean, having a single chip that supports all those sat-nav satellites is that's a big thing. I'm wondering, like, does it just jump around, or does the user have to select?
No, it's just dual frequency. So if it can get both L1 and L5, I think L1 is the main one, and L5 then allows it to create this more accurate pinpointing. So if it can get both, it will. You don't have to do anything.
Yeah, sounds cool.
Yeah, no, this is big, and I'm very curious. This is one of those things to keep it in the back of your head. Broadcom, accurate GPS chip, dual frequency, and whether it's Samsung or Apple or HTC or LG, somebody's going to talk about their new, much more accurate GPS than any other smartphone ever, and you're going to know, well, it's not you guys, it's Broadcom. Yeah. Hey, folks, if you want to get all the tech headlines each day in about 5 minutes, subscribe to dailytechheadlines.com. It's available as a podcast and on the Anchor app at anchor.fm. I have no updates yet on the Amazon Echo, but we did try something new this morning, and my fingers are crossed that we'll get that back soon. And that's a look at our top stories. All right, one more story we want to talk about. It's not necessarily a top story, but the Volocopter. We've been talking about this on the show before, too. Took an unmanned 5-minute, 200-meter test flight in the self-operating vertical takeoff and landing. It is a self-operating vertical takeoff and landing device, the Volocopter. Did this on Monday. There were some very important people there to witness it. Nobody was on it. It was unmanned. In Dubai. Dubai wants to use the 18 rotor vehicles in a flying taxi service that can offer rides that are up to 30 minutes long. So this was just a 5-minute test flight, but they've got big ideas, big plans. Each vehicle will have a backup battery and backup rotors, as well as parachutes, so that you feel safe. Volocopter hopes to launch the service within 5 years. Now, Volocopter is getting a lot of headlines because A, Dubai, and B, self-flying taxis, and they do a lot of demonstrations like this. Airbus, Uber, and Larry Page-backed Kitty Hawk are also pursuing flying taxi services as well. Some of them think they'll be ready by 2020, whereas the Dubai Volocopter, they're talking within 5 years, so they could be later than some of these others. It's a race, though. That's the point, Roger. There's a race on for self-flying taxis.
It's cool. Yet the skeptic in me starts screaming like, well, what happens when A, B, C, or D occur? For example, what if just heaven forbid something bad happens to one of them and it lands in the middle of the street on top of a passenger car? Would that suddenly put the public?
That's true. That's true of any flying device right now, though. What makes this different? I mean, a helicopter could fall out of the sky. Harrison Ford landed on a golf course right near my house once, right? Like, this happens.
Yeah, and that's why there are restrictions on where you can fly. So I'm wondering, are they going to essentially create, or and this isn't really a technological thing, it's a governmental thing. Are they going to just basically create corridors? Okay, did you check? I mean, that is basically what this company has said, is we will have a certain number of places where you can fly between. So my guess is, I mean, they're definitely. Oh no, like you have to take a specific route. You can't just fly over any building to get from point A to point B. That's, say, like you wanted to go from where you are to down to Torrance.
Yeah.
And typically it would be a straight line would be the fastest way.
You can't fly these wherever you want. They're not going wherever you want. Although what would be the problem with making that happen? You could come up with flight routes that do that. Helicopters fly all over Los Angeles and elsewhere, and they don't have to go on fixed routes necessarily. Yeah,
but they also fly higher. I don't know
what. Do you know what the actual maximum that this will fly is? I know that was just a 200-meter test this time.
I was actually going through the specs on the page. Let me go under product. So this is one of the. They weren't really big on details. They gave simple answers on things like, for example, especially quiet.
But you no, I know what you're saying. They were low. They were short on details in that. For one, in this Reuters article, which I don't think they have on their site, they admit that right now it can only follow GPS routes. So when you talk about fixed routes, they have to have fixed routes. They can only say, like, go from here to here. But they talk about, in this Reuters article, that they would want to develop sort of a self-driving autonomy that says it can watch out for things and make sure that it doesn't run into other vehicles and stuff like that. They're a little light on details about their AI.
I think part of it is that I still remember when and this is a long time ago. This is before I was born. Actually ended kind of right.
So you don't remember it. It was before you were born.
No. But I was super fascinated to know why helicopter like shuttle services weren't that popular in the US. And it turns out back in the late 60s in New York, there actually used to be one between the major airports and central Manhattan. Till one time, a helicopter lost control. It was a Boeing dual tandem rotor helicopter, and it lost power in one of them, and it crashed. And after that, I mean, after not just the deaths, but it kind of created a I wouldn't say fear, but kind of a more heavy regulation by the city about where helicopters could and could not fly over the city, especially if they carried passengers and all that stuff. So I'm wondering, on this particular, you have a safety route because you want, in case you need to bail in an emergency, you're not bailing on top of a busy street, you're not bailing on top of an apartment building. You have, like you were saying, either a grassy field or somewhere empty that, for the most part, you could you could safely assume you could land and not injure anyone. And the same thing with the parachute. Parachute sounds like a great idea until you actually, they build them for my daughter's trying to get into the room. They build them for small airplanes, and when they open up, it's kind of weird. They start like this, and then you start going like this because the parachute is very tiny for the craft.
Listen, you've got some very valid safety concerns that I'm sure they will address in one way or another, and we can decide if they've addressed them sufficiently when it's ready to launch. But I personally have way more questions about the technical feasibility of it. The ability for this thing to fly from where you want to where you want every time. And that's what I'm waiting to see more. But the fact is, we've got a half dozen or more companies working on this. This is going to happen.
Yeah, no, I actually believe this is totally feasible. I'm wondering, actually, okay, let's take away the safety. I talked that to death. I'm wondering about the overall profitability of the service, or is it going to be something where?
No, it's Dubai.
Yeah, like
they're just it's gonna be really expensive. That's my guess. Yeah, and it probably will get operate at a loss, and the city will subsidize it.
So is in that case, like, does it just become? I mean, it's obvious the country wants to use it as a form of investment attraction and a way to kind of raise the country's profile. But if you wanted to move this into any kind of other setting, I mean, what would be the business case scenario you could make? Like, would a private company contract out this service from someone because getting people from one part of the city to another is faster this way than if you just took a traditional?
I mean, the idea is this is going to be Uber. You're going to call it from an app, and you won't need drivers, and it will just say, "Hey, go to the top of this building, and we'll be there in 10 minutes." So anybody can use it.
Yeah. If they got the money, I mean, it just sounds very. The whole
I
thing
think in Dubai it's going to be expensive. However, Kitty Hawk, some of these others, I'm curious. I'm curious if it's going to be that, if they're going to be able to come in with economies of scale. They're going to do what Uber did, where you just charge less than it costs to operate at first until you get that scale. Those are all very good questions. Hey, thanks to everybody who participates in our subreddit. You can submit stories and vote on them at dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com. I think I mentioned this yesterday. I've been playing around with the 360-degree camera on Essential Phone, and I posted some examples of that at facebook.com/groups/dailytechnewsshow. Now, real quickly, text message is back. You can get the UK perspective from Nate and Ian again. And here is Nate to tell you what's going on with that show.
Thanks, Tom. Man, it is good to be back in my podcasting chair. And this week, we've got a great discussion about how English police forces are using dogs to sniff out USB devices that contain illegal digital content, such as child abuse and evidence of terrorism. Apparently, our guys are working with your guys to do this. Plus, one London music venue has become the first in the country here to completely dispense with paper tickets and go app only to cut down on third-party resale and fraud. As a regular concert goer, I've got a lot to say on this. You can hear that and more at techpodcast.uk.
Good to have you guys back. Very, very nice to have you in my ears. Our message of the day comes from Ross, who says, "Hey, Tom, and whoever else might be reading this." That'd be Roger today. Love today's podcast, especially the discussion about the Levi's jacket. I drive a scooter every day in Seattle to and from my job at the Apple Store, and I really can't live without the use of my Apple Watch during my commute. It's incredible for glancing down to see if a notification is worth pulling over and responding to, and if I'm at a red light or stop sign, it's nice for texting someone or checking directions. It's interesting that there's another wearable, a jacket, at the same price point, if not a little cheaper, that does a bit less than the watch. It's definitely cool to see this technology implemented. Thanks for the great show. Let me know if you have any Apple-related questions or want to know my opinion. Well, thank you, Ross. I appreciate that. And yeah, I guess I've heard a lot of people say the Apple Watch is really good for navigation. So I guess that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I'm curious. I mean, like if the Levi's jacket will catch on, or if not that particular design, say like they put into a motorcycle jacket.
Yeah, if a wearable computer will catch on in any way. Also, before we go, I want to mention that the last episode of the After On podcast with myself and Rob Reed is out today, discussing the last chapters of the book After On and containing an interview with British astronomer Stephen Webb about Fermi's paradox, which is, in short, if there's so many habitable planets out there, why haven't we heard from any aliens? The other good news is that After On will continue after me being on it. Rob has enjoyed interviewing people so much for the book that he's going to continue talking to folks about topics inspired by the novel, but the future episodes will have no novel spoilers. It'll just be interesting conversations. So you should definitely get in on the subscription at after-on.com. Thank you, Roger Chang. Anything to let people know about today?
Yes, Sarah Lane's coming on the show, so stay tuned. Everyone's going to be excited. I'm excited.
Yes, thank you, patrons, for making that happen. Keep the momentum going. The more you back us, the more we can do, and we want to do more monthly roundtable shows, and we've got other ideas to put up there as well. So if you haven't backed us already, you still can. Please do. Give us $1. You get all kinds of cool stuff. I was just going over the new business card for the advisor level with Scott Johnson earlier today. Head to patreon.com/DTNS. Don't forget Londoners, Monday, October 9th. I'll be in London for a meetup and live recording of the show. Go to bit.ly/DTNS London for more on that. And Los Angelinos, I will not be there, but there will be an episode of Daily Tech News Show from LA Podfest at our normal time, 1:30 Pacific, on Friday, October 6th. So go to LA Podfest and check out the schedule there to figure out how you can attend the Podfest and thereby see the recording. It'll be Justin Robert Young, Jeff Kanata, Darren Kitchen, Shannon Morse, and Allison Sheridan, all gathering together to talk some tech news for you. Our email address is feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. We're live Monday through Friday, 4:30 p.m. Eastern, 2030 UTC at alphageekradio.com and diamondclub.tv. And our website is dailytechnewsshow.com. Back tomorrow with Scott Johnson. Talk to you then.
This show is part of the Frog Pants Network. Get more at frogpants.com.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
Cool.
Good work. Good show.
Vimeo's doing it live. I think that's
Vimeo?
Vimeo.
Oh, Vimeo.
Vimeo's doing it live. I think that's a take on the...
Yeah, we'll do it live.
Yeah. The Schrodinger's
cat?
Fat Fox. I was about to say.
Oh, like Firefox. Yeah. Okay.
Fly Me to the Dune. Oh, I like that one. That's good.
I like Dubai. That's good. United Arab Emirates joke there.
Firefox Takes a Quantum Leap.
Yeah.
You like that one? Everyone likes Scott Bakula. I don't know. That's an open question. Firefox 57. Leap me out of this site, Al.
Okay. Quantum Leap
reference.
I get
My beautiful flying car. Dubai's Johnny Copter. Rogers talking. Oh,
that's a Johnny Copter. That's true.
Quantum Like a Fox. Firefox 57 varieties. Are you perplexed? Firefox doesn't look like a version over 50. Literally a quantum leap in performance.
Wow, a lot of Firefox ones in there. That was your favorite today.
Yeah, although Fly Me to the Dune, pretty sweet.
Yeah, I kind of love that. Fly me to the dune. Let me stray among the stars. I don't know. Any others that you like?
That one and what's the other one? Perpetual Office. That's a joke in itself. Perpetual Office. Fly Me to the Dune. It's kind of.
I mean, it's a perpetual license in that they don't make you renew it and pay, but also not perpetual in that no version of Office lasts forever. They stop supporting them eventually.
So I use not OpenOffice. I use LibreOffice.
LibreOffice. I use it sometimes. I use it less than I used to, though, because I just end up using Google Docs for so much.
I use it to format my resume.
Yeah. I run into fewer problems with it than I used to. I used to always run into compatibility issues because it was standards compliant. You know, that old saw. Like, oh, it's standards compliant and Microsoft Word is not. And now Microsoft Word can't read this. But I feel like that has become less of an issue.
I haven't really, part of it is I haven't been using a machine that's run Microsoft Office of any type for the past 4 years.
Oh, no, but it's about sending it. You talk about resume, sending it to someone and having them go, I can't open your thing. And
I send everything as a PDF.
Because it's standards compliant. That's why. Oh, that's smart, actually.
That way you can't adulterate my goodness. Look, you see here, he worked at Steak and Shake.
See, I do a lot of manuscripts. And when you do manuscripts, copy editors generally don't have LibreOffice. And they want to track changes in Microsoft Word, so I kind of end up having to use it for that.
Changes.
Turn and face the strain.
I was telling Jen about like when I used to live in Modesto, when we were in an apartment, the unit across from us during the summer, I guess he didn't work. He was always in his garage, and his garage was like a quarter of the way up, and he would be playing his guitar, and he would only play that bit of the song. I guess he was trying to learn it, but all he would do is the changes, and that's all he would play. And he played that for like months on end. And I used to think that was like a song he was developing until I realized, oh, wait, he's trying to do this song, and he hasn't learned any part past that one chord. But that's just me.
But that's just Roger. Did you like how subtly our Apple Store employee email praised the Apple Watch while talking about the jacket?
Yeah, I was honestly, I was trying to find the connection there, so I didn't want to say anything.
The connection is they're both good on a bike, right? Yeah. What he didn't point out, which I wish I would have now, is that the advantage to the jacket is you don't have to look, right? You don't have to read. And so that's better than the watch. But I think what he was trying to say is like, hey, the Apple Watch has been doing similar things to this. Now he sort of backhanded compliment, like, now it's about the same price or a little less. He did admit that. And it doesn't have a screen or do as many other things.
Well, it'd look cool if they designed it better. Not
the
better,
Apple Watch, on the other hand, will not cover nearly as much of you nor warm you on a cold day.
No, nor can you take it off and give it. Oh, yeah, you probably could.
Now, nor can you take it off and wrap it around a friend who is cold.
Yes. Yeah. Someone you want to get intimate with.
Well, it doesn't. Why do you have to go there? It doesn't mean that it can be or not. It doesn't have to be. It can be purely platonic.
Platonic? No.
Yeah. What? So you just let your friend be cold because you're like, I don't want to.
I would go to the trunk of my car where I keep extra blankets and say, here.
You wouldn't give him your jacket.
No.
Like, I don't trust you with my jacket.
I'm not getting into it
because I don't want to get it on with you.
Jacket.
I don't know.
I know human nature. I know my nature. I
think your nature and human nature may be different things.
Maybe. Some people tell me that. I don't know. I don't know if I believe them. He gave me his Apple Watch. No, that doesn't.
Yeah, no, you can't wrap your Apple Watch around him and keep him warm. It just doesn't work.
See, Chum Donkey.
Although we say that, I think if you were, let's say, interested in someone and you gave them your Apple Watch, that would be a hell of a gesture. It may not warm them up, but you're like, here, just have my Apple Watch. That's how much you need.
So cold. Well, you could. It has apps on it, but I'm shivering.
You can find a clothing store.
Well, that's great because it can give you your pulse rate, so you just keep your eye on that. Maybe do a couple of jumping jacks to warm up.
Go inside to get warm, but now you have a watch.
I'd shove. Beef writes in the chat room. I'd shove them into the trunk with the blanket.
Oh, now please.
Oh, I couldn't do that.
Let's not go shoving him into the trunk.
I couldn't. My trunk isn't that big. Maybe a hatchback that might work.
Yeah, but why?
You just leave the hatch open.
Yeah, it's not comfortable. Just let him sit in the front and turn on the heater.
In the front, so they can face forward.
Not says so. If Roger offers you his jacket, you know he's up to something.
Yeah.
Do you lay it across puddles too?
Oh no, never. Sorry.
No, it'll short it out.
I don't understand the whole thing. It's like, why, you get your shoes wet? No, I'm going to take some saran wrap or a couple of garbage bags and wrap them around your legs.
That's one of those things that makes a lot more sense in a different time and place, right? If I'm a guy who wears a cape and there's no paved roads and there's a big mossy part that's hard to get around and it's all wet, makes perfect sense for me to take off my cape. It's not even my innermost layer of clothing. Put it down over the wet part so the lady can keep walking, right? Perfect sense. Modern day, where you've got pavement and puddles aren't usually that big, and you're wearing a jacket, it's like one of only 2 pieces of clothing. Calculus just doesn't work out as much.
No, what I would do is take the sandwich board from the local subways, collapse it, and lay it over to the obstacle. It's like walk on that.
Well, what if there's no sandwich board, though? I mean, that is a smart idea, but
I would say walk around it.
There's generally something else you could find. You're right. Yeah, and walk around it is usually the issue. In today's city, anyway, maybe not so much in rural areas, but in cities, if you can't walk around it, you got bigger problems.
Yeah,
you need to go indoors.
And if you're troubled by a puddle of water, I don't know, you might need to change.
People have more appropriate footwear these days too.
Yes, I have crappy old boots that I wear. I thought about getting galoshes, but really, they're just kind of. I mean, they're not cumbersome, but you got to take them off, and I don't know. Although I wouldn't mind,
aren't very practical anymore.
Although I wouldn't mind having something like galoshes, but for like a sandpit for kids. So
you mean Uber for galoshes?
No, waders. You know, but you put your kid in it so they can play in the sandpit, but they won't get sand in their shoe or pants and stuff when you take them home.
Yeah, that could work. Like children's waders.
Yeah, or maybe just don't put them in the sandpit.
Or that, but that's no fun. Sandpit's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I guess, Tom.
You're dead inside. Okay, well, this is it for today's show. We hope Patrick Beja is better soon, and we will talk to you tomorrow with Scott Johnson.